My name's Dave King, and I'm part of a group of activists that are concerned about this new science of synthetic biology, and we've been here today handing out an open letter to the people who are attending this big international conference and trying to raise some issues with them that I think scientists very rarely get to think about because they tend to be so absorbed in their own ideas about what the problem is and how to solve it, that they very rarely sort of think about the concerns that ordinary people and environmentalists have about this kind of technology. And I think, particularly with synthetic biology, these people have already sort of raised lots of concerns about genetic engineering, but with synthetic biology, you're going to a whole new level of extreme genetic engineering. And with that, you get a whole new ideology that you see coming from the synthetic biologists, which is basically that they will create nature from scratch. They're not anymore interested in tinkering around. They're going to create it, synthesize it from scratch, and so basically make it conform entirely to their own ideas, and indeed their whole there's a whole engineering philosophy of how living organisms ought to be constructed so that they would be much more efficient and less wasteful, supposedly, than naturally occurring organisms that have arisen through 4 billion years of evolution. I think that's a really incredibly both arrogant and also sort of naive and simplistic attitude towards nature, and it also expresses a real sort of drive to dominate and control nature that unfortunately has been part of the scientific sort of technocratic mentality for the last few hundred years, and it sort of meshes perfectly with the capitalist drive to exploit nature without any limits, and so you have this partnership of science and capitalism that is basically what's responsible for the environmental crisis that we're in at the moment. Total depletion of resources and global warming and biodiversity extinction are a result of this attitude of domination of nature and treating it purely as a resource that we've had for this last 400 years. So we're trying to get scientists to try and think about that and try and rethink their sort of technocratic attitude. And I think, there are also a lot of practical concerns. One of the things that synthetic biology is very keen on is this idea of biofuels, which supposedly will solve the climate crisis by being neutral, and so therefore carbon neutral, and that will therefore allow us to keep on, with the ridiculous consumption of energy that we already have. We're already seeing a huge number of problems with biofuels, including the fact that land is being grabbed in third world countries and diverted from food production into bioenergy production, and a bunch of environmental problems associated with that. And the other thing that is really worrying about synthetic biology is that creating entirely new organisms that have been whose DNA has been synthesized from scratch, how are you going to possibly work out how that's going to affect ecosystems? Because these will be radical novelties in natural ecosystems, and it's impossible to predict how they'll behave. That's a really, so we're storing up a bunch of potential environmental disasters.